Network.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Valhalla Movement podcast. Today we have a very special guest who's actually a native or local in Montreal that I know personally, a friend of Valhalla's, and somebody who's been working on a really interesting project called JoatU. So for those of you who want to follow, all the links are in the description. There's also some campaigns and things going on. We'll get into that, but JoatU.com, so that's JoatU.com if you want to know more. The man behind this, the man who's been kind of brainstorming and trying to pull all of this together is Jamie Klinger, who has been a friend of Valhalla's for basically since kind of right out of the gates. I think it's been about 2 years that we've known each other now at this point. Something like that.
Yeah, I say it has.
Yeah, and he met Vivian, one of our members, I believe, at Valhalla Montreal, or not Valhalla Montreal, sorry, Occupy Montreal, right?
Even before that, actually.
Really? Okay, so, well, I mean, I guess, you know, the Occupy movement is something that Jamie was a part of, that Valhalla, myself, and Vivian also went to, and we kind of started to learn about it. Vivian was very, very involved, and I think you were too. But it's amazing how these movements are bringing together people and have kind of offsprung and brought together things like JoatU, brought together things like Valhalla, which I'm sure has taken, you know, some of the lessons that were learned at Occupy into account. So thanks, Jamie, for being a guest on the podcast.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
So give us the rundown. What is JoatU? What is it trying to serve? What does this mean? And what does the name mean as well?
Okay, well, we'll start with the name. JoatU is an acronym for the Jack of all trades universe. And actually my online explanation at JoatU.com is even better than me because it has a little animated figure explaining it and walking you through the system. But it's an online community marketplace. So think compare it to Craigslist a little bit, but shrink it down to your local neighborhood. So a walk of 10 to 20 minutes. And all of that would be centered around a hub. It doesn't have to be a closed space. It can be a park. It can be a library. The idea is it can be a community center. The idea is that it's around a non-commercial space where if people want to meet up in real life, they don't have to go to each other's houses directly. They can meet in this space that's a safe space. And so there would be these hubs with groups of people around that would trade, sell, rent, lend as they wish. And on top of that, we have community points. So when people that are part of the JoatU system do things that benefit the community, they receive benevolent points. So if they decide to teach a community class, if they decide to plant a community garden or help out a nonprofit, they would get points in their account that they can then add on to the trade. So they'd trade a lasagna and some JoatU points for a massage and a haircut, whatever.
Okay, so the idea is that this is operating as almost like an alternate system of trade that kind of eliminates or kind of removes money out of the equation to some degree, right? It's more based on the merits of what people are doing versus just like what society or the monetary value of that is, and it seems like it would allow for more people to kind of enter the trade, specifically in areas that might have struggled a little bit more financially, right? Like there's certain jobs that seem to be valued a little bit higher than others, but somewhat unjustly, right? Would we really want to live in a world without people who are, cooks or who are artists or who create movies or make music? Like all of these people are super important, but the jump to actually being successful or financially viable in those scenarios sometimes is tough. And sometimes the other thing that I seem to feel about some of the, when money is involved is like we're only talking to each other only because there's going to be some kind of exchange of I'm going to give you money and you're going to give me something, or you're going to give me something and I'm going to get and whatever it is. Like, and we're talking about bringing together people on a more communal level where people actually get to know one another, and then potentially they actually even become clients. Even if there is money to be exchanged in the future, it seems like this might create, a way of adopting or trying something new that you might kind of have been adverse to with your dollars and cents or your wallet at one given point.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you hit the nail on the head there. We have no real relationship with our grocery store. If all the power goes out and like we need to get food, is the grocery store our friend? Are they gonna supply us with anything? No. But if you know the farmer, if you know the person transporting, if you know everybody along the supply chain, and they're not just your suppliers, but they're your friends. It's a whole other thing. It's really about building community and trying to insert the village mentality back into the city.
Hmm. And so to do this, you guys are looking to launch a website that would enable this exchange, right? So you would sign up in some way, shape, or form, and within that sign up, that's where your account is held, and that's where you find other people in your area who might have skills or goods that you might want, and vice versa. Basically, and like you kind of said, it's kind of like the Craigslist, but for a community-based exchange system.
Exactly. I mean, it's a Craigslist with a little more prominence. You have a profile and you'd have references. So if you're good at cutting hair, then you'd have a lot of positive references. And if someone decides to be the first person to accept your haircut, well, that means that they're taking a risk, right? You have to understand that it'll work out well. Hopefully, if everyone's being honest, but it's a reference based system. So if you want to do things that are good, you'll have to prove yourself.
And so, where are you planning on launching this? Like, what's the scope of JoatU when you this, let's say the online button goes on and this community or this exchange is going, it's now being populated. Um, where do you see this kind of playing itself out?
So I'm definitely going to be working on getting it happening right around where I'm located at Co-op Sur Généreux. So I live in a space with we're about 15 people, and we have a big open space for community activities, for workshops, for presentations, for for quiet community cooking. So the idea is that this space would be the hub, and I would then do a campaign all around my neighborhood, a half kilometer to a kilometer in each direction until we get about and uh, and then fill it up, populate it like that, and that would be our first test market.
Mm. And so that being said, I know the co-op pretty well, and actually Valhalla is fairly familiar to it too. We have a couple of members that do stay there on a regular basis, and I know that these kind of things, these kind of initiatives, generally speak to people, right? People are longing for community. People are longing to create real connections. We go to all kinds of events for it. We go to concerts. We go to all kinds of things to try and regroup and meet people. People go out to bars or clubs or whatever it is that they do to try and meet people. And this seems like a great way of doing that. But I want to know what inspired it. Let's back up. Like before you got this idea, before this kind of came into your mind, what what was in the past? What brought this to you, and what makes you be so passionate about actually making it come online?
Well, I mean, to be perfectly honest, it's selfish in nature. So it goes back a little bit to my philosophical beliefs. So when I say it's selfish in nature, I believe that I am just another you, and that you are just another me, and that we are all of the same. And so if I'm doing something for myself, it's because I'm doing something for other people as well. Um, and I myself am a jack of all trades. So I'm a photographer, and I studied in marketing and philosophy, and I'm a writer, and I can help in relationship issues. I can do a lot of things that you'd never find one singular job for, and I didn't want to get stuck 40 hours a week doing one thing. I knew that I wouldn't be happy. I knew that I was too all over the place, and I thought, well, why isn't there something that we can do that? Wasn't there a way that we can manage the all of our talents and to share them and exchange them and make a living in such a way?
Mm.
And so I the first it was actually I woke up filled with inspiration one morning. I remember it was October 5th, 2012, and I pulled my laptop into my bed and I started typing furiously on Facebook, asking people the kinds of skills that they had, just to see if there were other people that were like me. And I was blown away that just about everyone that I spoke to had like three, four, five things that each one of them thought that they could offer into this system, of just offering and exchanging with other people. And so it was right then and there that I was like, okay, well, it's clear that there's a market for this. It's clear that the people have the talent. Now, how do we get them in touch with each other? And I just started opening myself up to the community and asking people. And developing an idea that that has grown and shifted after speaking with, like, we're into over 1,000 people easily, um, and just getting this sense of what people need, what people's fears are, what people want to see, and it's grown off the collaborative ideas of over 1,000 people at this point.
Wow. And so
Yeah.
in that, because I feel you on that. Like I'm somebody who I've had numerous jobs, all self-employed, over the last couple of years. If you asked me last year what I kind of did, I would say I ran a marketing company and I mainly focus in photography and videography. And if you ask me today, I would say a little bit more web focus, and I would even say I would bring in this coaching aspect of the fact that I do kind of entrepreneurship coaching and people who want to also, like, coaching for people who are in the world of social causes, sustainable initiatives. I'm also working on a big website called Green Seed, which is going to, help try and launch ideas like this into the ether and actually make them come to life and actually happen. And I totally get the jack of all trades feel. I also totally get the ability, like the self-empowerment side of this, which is, as opposed to trying to take my skills and fit them into the molds of whatever company is out there, why is there not that ability to kind of market it in a more, in a better way, right? And I've when I first started out in business, I looked on Craigslist for all kinds of different things, or I'd put out, videography skills, like, message me if needed or whatever it was, or here and there I'd see a posting for something and I would just apply for it, like, real quick, see if I can get the job, grab another gig. And I've always found that Craigslist was not great. Like, you always met some of the weird, shady, not the best type of individuals, and it was always like the worst jobs too. Like, it seemed to be a market where a lot of people who weren't willing to spend the money or were really going to be picky or really tough clients and customers were going to kind of end up. And it's not necessarily the most professional place to go and apply for jobs either. Like, the type of company that's not spending enough money posting it on, or any money, kind of find their talent and is just like trying to put that out, that free Craigslist ad, generally is not the type of enterprise that most people probably want to work for in the long run. And so I love the self-empowerment side of it. But the other thing that Craigslist doesn't really have is kind of the gamification side of it, right? Which is a little bit of what you're bringing into this, which is community points, or these why is it not coming to me? Benevolent points, right?
Benevolence points.
Benevolence points.
Benevolence.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Missing the word.
Yeah.
Which actually allow you to kind of grow, and that's how things like eBay worked, right? When eBay first came out and everyone was freaking out, oh wow, we can bid on these things, and wait, well, how do I know that this person's really going to send me it? Well, it all had to do with their rating, right? Well, what were the reviews? What were the other people who had interacted with this person felt, or what were their kind of experiences like? And that would generally probably translate into what my experience would most likely be like. And so having that whole aspect of it is super crucial to making it work. And the last piece, which I find probably the most challenging, and even from Valhalla's perspective, and everything I've ever done, is trying to get as many people as possible to sign up, right? Because networks work best as they grow. They actually get more and more efficient the bigger and bigger that they get, and then eventually there is some version of a drop-off where there's a little bit too much spillover, but they do kind of work best if you want to do something global by having a lot of people. Now, I like your approach of doing something local, right? As opposed to saying, hey, look, I'm going to try and conquer the online space for community engagement and interaction and exchange mainly throughout, all of America and Europe and all these places. You're really trying to say, hey, you know what? I want to try and make this work between like me and a 1 mile radius of myself kind of thing, right? And if this works here, then it will slowly but surely spill off into the next circle and the next point and the next point and the next point. And I want to know, what is your, like, when you're going out there doing this campaign, when you're trying to get people online, what do you think the strategy is going to be to getting people to use this more and more and more? And where do you see like the biggest challenges in your? So I think populating the network might be the biggest challenge. But what other challenges have you guys been facing, and what other challenge have you kind of been hurdling over slowly but surely?
Well, firstly, I'll answer the so how would I get people to use it more and more? Just fill it up with people with interesting offers and keep having. Oh, hey, there's new offers, there's new people have added offers into their profiles. Let the people who've joined know that it's lively, and at the same time, it's an opportunity to meet your neighbors. You see someone's offering cooking lessons, and maybe you happen to be a chef. Maybe you're like, oh, I didn't know that there was someone who offered pastries cooking, and I offer this other kind of cooking. Like, we could just do a direct exchange, and we'll teach each other something, and maybe I'll make a new friend out of it. So I think it's an opportunity to get to know your neighbors that a lot of people, if they have the time or interest, would push forwards and would push towards. As far as challenges, definitely. So we've been working with next to no money. Everybody who's working on the project is volunteering. I've been volunteering full time for the last 2 years, almost, because I believe in this, because this is my baby, and I invite everyone to come in and to work on the theory with me, to work on all of it with me as much as they want. As much as it's my baby, it's an open source project. And so anyone who's interested can literally go onto our GitHub and say, oh, I think this site should have this kind of thing, and then create it in Ruby on Rails, and then give it. And if we believe that it's something that fits with what we're doing, we'll pull it right in. We'll use it. So it's very much an open source collaborative project. As far as challenges, it's finding talented programmers and designers who can actually take some time to help develop something, because they want to, because they actually have the time to do so. And that's definitely the biggest challenge when you're looking for skilled labor to work for next to nothing, or to work for nothing, which is why we're raising some money so that we can at least put some food on the programmers' tables.
Have you been able to find
So
those programmers already, or is that something you're ongoing?
Yeah, I mean, it is ongoing. It's not. I mean, we have. It's funny. It was a chicken and egg situation. So when we first launched our crowdfunding campaign, I'd gone through several programmers who worked for a little bit and then kind of fell off. And but when I launched the crowdfunding campaign, very soon after, I was approached by a programmer who'd saw it on his friend's page, who saw the campaign on his friend's page, and said he was interested in helping, and that he would help develop the platform's basis. Like, he would help develop like the entire like starting point, so that even if he decides that he has to go off and do other things later, that we would have a very, very solid base to work from, and that he was dedicated to building this. And he's been with me since since May or so, and we're actually like we should have an online like closed alpha to test like any day now. I logged on yesterday and I had a look at it, and I mean it's a little buggy, right? But it's on its way, and I'm super excited.
That's awesome. So you said Ruby on Rails, right? That's what you were using that to code with? Okay, so anybody who's listening to this, I am going to throw
Yeah, it's all being
out
coded in Ruby.
into the ether the fact that we both are looking for Ruby on Rails specialists. Jamie with JoatU, and I myself and the team, the Valhalla team, the Green Seed team, is always looking for somebody who would also be willing to code with Ruby for Valhalla to make these kind of mega platforms that really kind of get complex work and come together. And it seems to be that Ruby is the best way to do that, and is the best language in terms of code to make something like this be able to be scalable and stuff. So anybody out there listening to this, by all means, send, if you guys want, send, write in the comments below if you're interested, or send an email to info@valhallamovement.com. Even if it's for Jamie, I'll make sure to forward it to him. That being said, I want to go back to a little bit of like, you were there at Occupy. You were there when the system of exchange that was happening on the ground, in person, every day, with like people bringing food or people bringing tents or whatever it was, there was always people kind of exchanging knowledge and things at any given moment at Occupy, and it kind of led to a whole bunch of different connections that, to me, kind of make Occupy successful in a weird way. It allowed us to network. It allowed us to see what was kind of possible together, and kind of continue to work on some of these ideas that we might not have embarked upon had we not known that there was like thousands of people, millions of people who felt the exact same way we did. And I want to kind of pick your brain as to what you think. How do you think that maybe JoatU could have helped Occupy, or could help the next version of Occupy when it does launch?
Well, firstly, I want to touch on the point about what you said about Occupy. So I just attended the People's Social Forum last week, and there was it was effectively a gathering of activists from across Canada, and I'm sure there were some international people there as well. And there were over 500 workshops that happened at the Ottawa U campus, and there were all kinds of activities, and there was a poetry slam, and an elaborate number of things going on. But I actually just wrote a blog post describing why I believed it was so successful, at least for me, and this for the exact same reason that Occupy held so much success, and it's because it held the space. All we needed was a collaborative space to work from, where people could congregate and discuss and ideally work on solutions on how to make things better. And so if you can hold a space where you're like, hey, this is the activist space, come live, we'll feed you, and like you can work and help food, or you can help with lodging, or you can help with this, that, or the next thing, and you can speak with and network and talk about your ideas and try and build something with people, like that's what we need. And that's why Occupy was so great, and that's why the People's Social Forum was so great, because it really held the space, and I think that's really important. As far as JoatU and or JoatU, I don't even know how to pronounce it. I think that for the next Occupy or the next social movement, I haven't really thought too much about how it would affect that. I thought more about how it would affect people who are already engaged a little bit in their community, who are looking to get engaged in their communities. But in theory, I mean, if your community is valuing that social movement, and it wants to, and it thinks that it should put points towards it effectively, it thinks that that there should be people helping out, then it can call that social movement a community offer of sorts. And so you say that Occupy 2 is a community organization of sorts, and they need someone to come and bring food, and that's worth this many points, and they need someone to bring tents, and that's worth this many points, and that'll be because the community said, okay, Occupy 2, we value you, we think you're important, we want to help you. What are your needs? Let us know how we can help, and
Mm-hmm.
then make that call out. And then the people that live in that community or in the extended communities will say, all right, we're coming, we're going to help you guys out because that's what we want. We just need to know what you need. So it's really it's a way to reach a lot of people in a really small area, very quickly. I
In a
think for
fast
that.
way. Yeah,
Hmm.
because when I was there, one of the main things that I noticed was that the the need for kind of information being gathered on one platform or one place was kind of crucial, because what happens on the ground is when not everyone knows each other and there's this constant influx and outflux of people, where like the number of people, the people who are trying to get involved, and then like the full timers versus part timers and all of these discussions and things that are going on at Occupy, what really kind of happens is that it gets a little bit disorderly in some respects. And even if it's not disorderly, even if like there is like this pace that builds, it does take time, right? Like you were using the human megaphones or whatever it was, and you would have to like yell out, and then the message would be yelled out further and further and further. But it would take like 10 minutes to say something that you would normally have said in 1 minute, to do, right, like to do. And so it seemed like a lot of what was happening, or all the decisions that were being made, or the exchanges that needed to happen, or the items or tools or things that people needed, should have just been like kind of put into this online platform, and then you can have that gathering, that space, that physical space, as well as the online space, interact with one another. And the true proof of that comes when you actually observe giant corporations. Corporations use computers to track their inventory. They use computers to track what's going on the ground in any given store at any given time. They know what their stocks are like. They know what is happening, and what needs to be ordered, or and they know the delay of the time that it takes between the moment that they order it and the time that it actually has it in store, and they can calculate in advance when they should start ordering things as the stocks get low on a particular shelf in a particular area. And so the science of actually exchanging all of this information actually leads to the most effective form of physical space, of physical interaction, whereby in this case the stock is always on the shelf and very seldomly actually is not. And it's only based on problems on the supplier side or whatever it is that actually happens. The other thing is that sometimes maybe a supplier ran out of stock. Maybe they had a machine that broke down and they couldn't produce it. They also have a list of other people who might be able to supply that exact same thing. So what happens is in this scenario is, and this is a very real scenario, what happens when you want a haircut and your hairdresser's on vacation? Well, and she's on vacation for, let's say, 3 weeks, and you really need a haircut. You can't wait. You have a wedding the next day or something. You want to look presentable, and you haven't cut your hair in months, and now all of a sudden you need to go and find this person, but you want somebody who's trustworthy. You want somebody who's probably near you in your community, and this is where a system like JoatU, to me, brings that value. It brings the value of creating this kind of platform where sourcing different elements and different things kind of can go through a Rolodex that would take years of kind of PR networking, if you will, to do. You couldn't network as fast as somebody as a platform that auto-populates itself based on the value that is being exchanged could do. And I think, like I said, Occupy and all these things really would have benefited from the fact that if they were able to, out of Occupy, create this platform that would enable them to exchange these information, exchange their skills, as well as exchange resources, that I really believe that Occupy would still be going today. What I kind of feel like is that it's going to re-happen, but it will relaunch with that system in place. When that platform is together, when that call to action for rallying and call to action for social support or ways of kind of making a message spread across the internet as well comes into play, then it will work. And to me, this is actually already happening. Things like Greenseed are dedicated to something like this. Things like Thunderclap, which I also saw that you used, are dedicated and was inspired by Occupy. At the end of the day, they heard the founder of Thunderclap. His name is David, somebody who we know at Valhalla fairly well. He saw the human megaphone working, and he was like, "Why don't we have this for like online? Why can't we just like go and click on something and support it so that we all share this online at any given time, as opposed to all having to individually share it? And what if we can make like an impact through numbers, right?" And these platforms are now actually spinning off into the ether of existence, and now I believe it only is going to take another area of social unrest, another like kind of big screw you by the system, that's going to make some of these platforms be of even higher value, I think. How do you feel about that? I mean, how do you feel about how Occupy was run? How do you feel about like just what could be possible if we take what is online and apply it into that space that you've been talking about?
I mean, I hadn't really thought about using it in a way to help another Occupy. I personally don't or didn't imagine another Occupy sprouting up, at least not in the same physical way that it had. But I suppose it's entirely possible. I think there's a lot of technophobia around Occupy. It's very intergenerational. For one, and I think a lot of the value comes from interacting in real life. I completely agree that if there was a backbone layer of technological infrastructure that it would make like running the camp a million times easier. And I think it could be really interesting. I'd have to think about that more, about how that could work in real life. But there's just want to mention like there's another platform that came about because of Occupy in New Zealand, called Lumio, which is a beautiful platform for decision making processes.
Yes.
Because they saw the issue of how difficult it was to come to consensus, and they thought, well, why isn't there a way that we could just join a group online and just be in this group to make decisions and to have a discussion about, I think that we should leave all of our bikes outside, and then other people are like, no, I think we should leave them inside, and then we'll talk about like alternative solutions, and then can present votes inside the system. So it's loomio.org. It's a great platform. They did a huge crowdfunding campaign a few months ago, and they raised over $100,000 to keep building their platform, to make it into an app, and to do a lot of great things. So they're worth checking out, and they're absolutely free.
I've heard a lot about Lumio actually, and I think it's really, really, really exciting. I haven't been following their progress. Do you know where they're at this point? Do you know like how soon something like this is going to be out and kind of fully functioning? Or
Oh, it's there. It's been there for a while. They have literally thousands of groups that are already using it,
oh
and it's
wow,
really easy to use. It's just they're going to make it easier to use, and they're going to make it on a phone, and they're going to make it. It's just like the next level of it.
okay,
But yeah, no, it's completely there. You can sign up with you and 10 friends or 200 friends. I think they even increased the limit to like 2,000 or something. So you could have a village join up and discuss all kinds of issues and make propositions on how you can solve things. You could effectively rebuild democracy online with Lumio if you wanted to. It might take a while, but it can happen.
wow,
Hmm.
and so. Wow, that's awesome. I mean, I find, like, I've heard so much about Lumio. I never actually, like, I went on their campaign. I actually donated to it as well when it was going online. I didn't
Me
realize they were
too.
already up. I didn't realize that it was already, like, rolling, and I totally have just not followed up since. I feel like, yeah, I don't know. I feel like the online realm of generally crowdsourcing as a whole is super, super, super interesting to me because, and that's what Green Seed is all about. It's like trying to crowdsource as many things as we possibly can towards sustainable initiatives and social causes. And though that element of crowdsourcing, that element of like bringing together and connecting dots has been super tough to do. And we've kind of seen it work in some ways, right? Or on one particular topic, like things like Facebook and Twitter and then, Instagram. And so we're kind of connecting dots on certain elements of kind of co-creation, right? Like I take a picture, you take a picture, we both have profiles with pictures, Instagram, there that exists. I want to send you something that's going to erase itself privately. You want to send me something that's erasing itself privately. Boom, comes together. Snapchat, all of these things come out of these needs for sharing, the need for connecting dots, and the need for also content consumption, right? Like we just want to find interesting stuff. We want to know about what's going on in our community. And it seems like there is a lack of it on the front of crowdsourcing as a whole, and crowdsourcing being putting all of those kind of different elements or trying to combine numerous elements into one area where one account will enable you to do numerous things that a project needs. What has been your experience with crowdsourcing, crowdfunding? Like, how do you have you felt about some of these websites? Because I know you've kind of dabbled around them, and I know you also are very passionate about things like Bitcoin and stuff, which seems to start creating the technology of being able to share information and or kind of source numerous things into one kind of data point, if you will.
Oh yeah, I'm all for the peer-to-peer movement, P2P. Great Facebook group, by the way, P2P, for those looking for more information. And there's the Peer-to-Peer Foundation as well. They have a great website. You can join it. It's wiki styled, so you can collaborate in it as well. And they host a plethora of articles and books and videos and all kinds of things involving about talking about collaborative consumption and crowdsourcing and crowdfunding and everything to do with the social economy.
Mm-hmm.
For me personally, I mean, for JoatU, it's gone incredibly well. We have a community page on our website that just lists off like the first names of something like 50 people who've spent between like 200 hours helping develop JoatU in one way or another. So it's worked phenomenally well. I have people all over the world who are helping currently and who have helped in the past, just because they're interested in working on collaborative solutions. I think that's how we get there. And actually, specifically about JoatU, I think one really exciting thing that we're doing is with our benevolence points, because we are offering out a way for the community to speak their mind on what they believe is valuable. So not just are they able to not only are we a platform for local communities to change what they want to invest towards on a regular basis, continually evolve their thoughts and ideas, but they can actually actively reward these new ideas. So we're a platform for evolving value generation. So it's like if you look at the government, when you launch a program, that program's probably going to stick around for another 20, 30, 40 years because it's so difficult to change things. But with JoatU, it's really on demand. So you have new demand, you have new needs. Well, we will fulfill those needs because we can.
Mm-hmm.
So I think allowing groups of people to come together to express their needs and then to collaboratively spend towards that has incredible implications. I think that'll that could put us on the fast track. That could exponential growth compared to what we're looking at with the government.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, what I also noticed is peer-to-peer is something that has actually been coming together for a while, right? It's something that I watched a documentary on Napster the other day, where Napster comes out and all of a sudden it just completely revolutionized something that was absolutely archaic, which was the record industry, right? And the music and how you get your music, and then all of a sudden all of this information, all of this content that we wanted was completely kind of free to exchange itself online. and nobody could really stop it. And as the time that it took for the people in place to try and shut down Napster, which they ended up successfully doing, what really happened is that, like, I remember, like, Kazaa came out and all these other elements that just created this P2P network that we still use today. I mean, if you torrent anything, that's P2P. That means that this file is on numerous people's computers and is being sourced into one collective state, which is you, right? You're just going in there looking for said file or said, service or whatever it is, and you just are pulling that out from there into your computer and into your life. And it seems like JoatU is that exact same system. How can we, is this something that we might launch into the P2P world that might be able to kind of revolutionize how quickly we're able to exchange services and goods, and also make it more affordable to everyone, right? Because it's no longer like, again, that high value, like, oh, well, this person has this job that's worth this much. It's really more like, hey, I can do this, and my time is just as valuable as your time to some degree, and therefore we could just connect. Like, I'll cut your hair and you'll do my plumbing, even though maybe I would have paid the plumber a little bit more than the person cutting the hair. Generally, it will only take about the same amount of time anyway, so it's a fair exchange. So it's changing the culture of how, in the same way that Napster changed the culture of music, it's changing the culture of removing the dollar and cents figure out of our minds of what this is worth, and more saying, what is the time that you're investing into this? And I feel like it dances around the time element, or at least I guess it does for me, right? In my exchange of somebody, I would say, like, well, how much time is it going to put into this, and how much time is this person going to put into it? Yeah, okay, it's fairly equal. It seems about right, and I really want that, and they really want this, and depending on our given wants, maybe we'll sacrifice a little bit more. We'll spend a little bit more time doing something, even though it might be worth more in terms of dollars and cents, and that translates into a quicker, more efficient system, because the time that it also takes to exchange money, to go to the bank, to even send emails or whatever it is with e-transfers and all that kind of stuff, and then to make that money is valuable time that is really eating up a large portion of what everyone spends their time doing every single day. Every single day people go to work to make money so that they can have that money to exchange for the value system. But what if they could just get that apple without having to go to work for it? What if they could just go here and go straight to the apple? And eliminating that kind of middleman, which the bank and that monetary value is constantly that middleman, seems quite important. It seems like it will work when there's critical mass. It will work better and better and better, and people have been able to do it on small systems. Occupy was one of those scenarios. All kinds of other exchange programs do work nonetheless, like things like Stack Overflow or whatever. There's all kinds of exchange, Yahoo Answers. There's all kinds of exchange systems that work with basically zero monetary value being exchanged. But now it's time that we do this in the physical space. It's time that we try and take this online platform and make it work right here, right now, where we are, and in our local area, so that we can go to someone and say, hey, you're a personal trainer, help me with this, and I'll help you with your business, or I'll do your accounting, or whatever it is. That kind of stuff could really revolutionize our way of dealing with one another, our way of exchanging, I believe.
I couldn't agree more. And you make some really good points. I heard a figure that something like a third of all the value, all the time spent in our economy is on the financial system itself. So, so many of the jobs that people have today are all related to moving money around.
Yeah.
If you took out those jobs and just gave everybody that extra money, we would have more than enough money to, we wouldn't need that money. We would be able to, it's senseless. It's senseless how much waste our current system is wasting. And it's really a shame. And so, yeah, I'm hoping that we can eliminate some of that waste sooner than later. So I traveled around this summer, actually. I went from Montreal to Vancouver to California to New Orleans. I was really all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
And I was one conversation struck me in some tiny town in Nevada. And it was this town of 100 people, 200 people. It was like just a strip. It was absolutely tiny. And And I asked them about like the way that they kind of exchange, and it was so lackadaisical. It was so fluid. It was just like, oh, you see someone's like shoveling, it's like, oh, you go over and you're like, hey, do you need a hand? And they didn't commodify their entire existence. They just helped each other out because they know that in their community they help someone else out, then they'll
Hmm.
get helped in return, or they'll help someone else out, and it'll just keep paying it forward. And there's no like, oh, I spent so many hours helping that person out, they should spend so many hours helping me out. But then you go to the city and it's the exact opposite. It's like, I won't do anything for anyone unless I get something of absolute equal value in return. And so it's we have to like bridge that gap. And well, I mean, first get to know your neighbors. You wouldn't want to
which
come.
which is
Yeah.
quite the challenge in and of itself. Sorry to
Uh,
interrupt you.
uh, oh, absolutely. Yeah, it's really difficult to get you to know your neighbors. I mean, if another reason is because we all have, a lot of people have cars, so it's like if you walked everywhere, well, you would bump into them. But if everyone just jumps right into their car from their driveway and drives away, you're not going to have that same opportunity to
Yeah.
bump into them nearly as much. Um, Opportunity to meet your neighbors, to start decommodifying your existence a little bit, and to start a more friendly exchange between people. The people who want to get more out of it, well, then let them get more. If the other person doesn't feel that they're getting less, then let everyone be happy.
That's
Um,
true.
I think, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I mean, it makes a lot of sense to not um, to not try and find the exact value of the exchange all the time. And in those scenarios, we actually feel great about it. Like we're saying this, and today I know Burning Man is actually happening. Okay, and the whole event is basically this big thing where there's a system of exchange that's going on amongst people, and they do need a kind of they did charge to buy tickets, and they do try and cap it because they need to try and or at least their goal is to try and maintain order and to put on such an event with such a scale and so having all the bathrooms and things that nobody is really bringing to the table. Okay, you need a little bit of bankroll to make that work, and there's a team of people who work on this full time. But what is really happening there is the gift economy is actually working, and it's attracting more and more people, including people with lots of money now, to these events because they feel phenomenal. Like it feels phenomenal to go to an area or a place or have an exchange with somebody that is really genuine and not based on how much money do you have and how much money do I have, and and just feels right in that way. And so I think it's really 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 something that's a long time coming. I'm glad to see you're doing it, and I want to highlight the fact that you do need a little bit of help too. I want to highlight the fact that Jamie has spent, like you said, the better part of 2 years putting this together. I know he's been working hard on it. I know he's been developing. I know he's been talking endlessly about how this could work and trying to find the right people to make it happen. And I also know that he's got a crowdfunding campaign together, something that is also being backed by something called the Get Together Neighborhood, which is kind of matching some of the funds that you could potentially lend and help make a difference with. And I want to invite you guys to go check that out. Well, I'm going to put the link in the description because it's too long to say. It's on a platform called In Your Own Backyard, which started out of New York, and I'm actually surprised to see that it's working here in Montreal too. But the chance that you have to be able to make a small impact that can ripple out into a huge exchange system amongst you and your peers, you and your neighbors, and you and the people in your own backyard and near your own backyard, this could really change things. And people like Jamie, people who are trying to make this happen on all types of shapes and sizes, whether they're creating a space physically or whether they're creating it online, all of these elements are super important. And I know you've heard this before, but I'm going to say it again. You vote every day with your dollar. And I know I'd like to change that. I'd rather you be able to vote every day with your clicks or with your attention or with your time or with your love and compassion towards things that you believe in. And there is no better way to support something like this than to actually give your time and energy and volunteer into something like this. Even if you don't have money, that's the entire point of JoatU, is he could do this with people who are also willing to dedicate themselves to making this happen. And that's why we put out a call for somebody on Ruby on Rails. But I'm sure there are other positions, other people who could help make this happen. And the same, I know, applies to Valhalla. There are tons of jobs, whether it be in like landscaping and permaculture, or whether it be in like just helping us keep the place clean at the land, or whether it be planting flowers, or whether it be doing things online. We need people all the time. And what we really need is people like you to come with your ideas and empower this kind of scenario. And I know some of you guys are really far out. You're not in the Montreal area. You know, donating $1 or $2, donating $25, $100, whatever is within your means, or even just sharing socially can be a huge help. And so letting people know about these kind of systems, letting people know that you want to see them happen, and even sending us a message saying, hey, I think what you're doing is really awesome, is super encouraging. It's super uplifting and makes us feel like what we're doing is worthwhile, and it enables us to kind of stay on the path that we have chosen to embark upon. And so I do ask of you that you do support something like this, like JoatU, like Valhalla, like anything that's going on in your own town too, okay? You don't even have to forget about us to some degree too. Go and figure out who your neighbors are and what they're doing. Go and figure out how you can play a role in making something like this happen near you. Because it is out there. There are many people out there that do feel this way. That's what Occupy taught us. And you might call it a fail. You might say that it was disorganized. You might say all of these things. And in certain scenarios, I totally agree with you. But what I will always say, having been someone who went to Occupy Wall Street, who went to Occupy Montreal, who went to Occupy in Boston and in Florida and all these places that I was visiting at the time that this was all going on, what I also saw is people coming together and having those conversations, holding that space that Jamie talked about. And man, it really can change things. It really can shift something inside of you to enable you to be a part of something like this. So please go and check out the link in the description for Jamie's campaign. We'll maybe post a blog or something on our website about it too. You'll obviously see it through this podcast. Guys, also, please consider rating, commenting, subscribing, doing whatever. Smash the buttons all over. Every time you click something, it actually helps us. Okay, the only button I don't want you to click as much is the dislike. But even then, if you dislike it, hey, feel free. Feel free. Yeah, I'm all for the fact that you guys can rate this in any way, shape, or form. And I want to show, and I give the floor a little bit to Jamie for some closing remarks, but I want to show a real appreciation for people in my neighborhood who are making this happen. So thank you, Jamie, for that. And I mean, if there's anything else you want to share or spread anywhere else, they can contact you or find more about this, let them know.
Yeah, well, just basically JoatU.com is the best place, and you can send an email to info@JoatU.com if you have a direct question. I'm quite active on Reddit as well. You can talk to me there. Start up a thread and send me a PM, and we can talk about it there and have big discussions. If you have direct questions, I mean, you can read our FAQ. But this is only coming about. This is all inspired by people. This is all inspired by my activity with community and realizing how valuable it is to share and how good it makes me feel. It was something that I've struggled with, and it's something that I still struggle with to share. And so I want to make that easier for everybody because I know how valuable community can be. And how much it brings to our lives, how much enrichment it brings to our lives. I want to walk down my street and know my neighbors, and I think that would bring so much happiness to everybody involved in that. We need more green streets. We need more green alleyways, and we need more friendship throughout. And we'll be a more secure, and we'll be a happier community.
Without a
So
doubt.
yeah,
Without a
thank
doubt.
you. Thanks so much for the opportunity. It was
Anytime.
great speaking with you.
Anytime. So visit the website, smash the like button, make it happen. Thank you very much, guys, for listening. Until next time, have a good one.
Thanks for listening. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast on iTunes, and don't forget to rate and leave a comment. Until next time, be the hero you've always dreamed of being.